In the previous video, we have discussed about the life cycle of a servlet and we'll look at some of the servlet lifecycle methods. So in this video, let's understand how actually the container will handle multiple requests. So let's get started. Assume that there is a client A, client B, and there is a server. The client A will send a request to a server. The server takes that request, convert the HTTP objects into Java objects, and hand over it to a service method. The service method will call the doGet or doPost method depending upon the HTTP method. Assume that the client is sending for a get method, so the service method will call the doGet method. While processing the doGet method, the client B will send a request. Now what will happen? Whether the container will stops the execution of the client A and it will give a chance to client B, or the container will first completes the client A's request and then picks up the client B's request. Well, the answer is the container will handle both the requests, which means the container will execute both the requests simultaneously. How can it possible? Because the client A is already occupied the request and response objects. How does the client B gets those two objects? Remember one thing. Each request will be run in a separate thread, which means the container will allocate or creates a new thread for each request. So each time when we make a request, the container will create two special objects, HTTP servlet request and HTTP servlet response, in a separate thread. So those two objects will be passed to a service method. The service method will take those two objects and it will call the doGet or doPost method depending upon the HTTP method, and once the service method completes its execution, those two objects will be destroyed or it is available for garbage collection. So this is how the container will handle the multiple requests. The container will allocate or creates a new thread for each request, and inside the thread, request will be processed. Each time when we make a new request, each time the container will create the request and response objects. Once everything is done, those two objects will be eligible for garbage collection. And the most important thing, each time when we make a request, servlet object will not be created. Servlet object will be created only once, but each time when we make a request, HTTP request, HTTP servlet response will be created. Those two objects will be created, not the servlet object. So this is the high level overview of handling a multiple requests by the container. So that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. I will see you in the next video.